As the soft hush of night settles around you, let us gently drift across the high plateaus and verdant valleys of ancient Mesoamerica, where a powerful civilization once rose under the golden sun, mighty, mysterious, and deeply spiritual. This is the story of the Aztecs, known to themselves as the Mexica people, whose empire would come to dominate central Mexico, leaving behind a legacy of monumental architecture, profound religious beliefs, and complex societal structures. Tonight, we journey slowly and peacefully through the entire arc of Aztec history, from their earliest mythical origins, through the rise of their majestic city Tenochtitlan, to the eventual fall of their empire in the early 16th century. The Aztecs did not see themselves as a people with a beginning in time, but rather as heirs to ancient traditions. Their story starts in Aztlan, a mythical homeland of 7 tribes, said to lie far to the north. According to their legends, the Mexica people migrated from this sacred place under divine guidance, seeking the land promised to them by their gods. Their journey would be long, their beginnings humble. But in time, they would settle on a marshy island in the heart of Lake Texcoco, where they saw a divine Cygnon eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a serpent. There, they would build Tenochtitlan, the capital of their empire and the jewel of Mesoamerica. In this gentle narrative, we'll explore not only the great rulers and conquests, but also the daily life of common citizens, what they ate, how they prayed, the schools their children attended, and the markets they visited. We'll see sacred temples rising toward the heavens, hear the solemn cadence of ritual drums, and walk the broad causeways that connected Tenochtitlan to the mainland. And when the Spaniards arrived, bringing steel, horses, and devastating disease, we will follow the course of a dramatic and tragic encounter between 2 worlds. But even in decline, the spirit of the Aztecs endured. Their descendants, the Nahua people, still live in Mexico today. Their language survives, as do many of their customs and rituals. So now, close your eyes. Let go of the worries of the day. Allow your mind to wander back through time, to a land of floating gardens, feathered gods, and an empire built upon sacred stone. Let us begin. We begin our story in the realm of myth, where history and legend are woven together like threads of a great feathered cloak. Long before temples were built and empires rose, the ancestors of the Aztecs spoke of a sacred homeland called Aztlan, the place of the herons, surrounded by water and shimmering with spiritual energy. No one is certain where this mythical land lay, though many believe it to have been in the north of modern-day Mexico or the American Southwest. According to tradition, 7 tribes, the Nahua people, submerged from Aztlan, each with its own customs and gods. Among them were the Mexica, the people who would one day forge the Aztec Empire. Guided by their patron deity, Huitzilopochtli, the god of sun and war, the Mexica were instructed to leave Aztlan and search for a new home, a promised land marked by a powerful omen, an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a serpent. And so, the long migration began. Over generations, the Mexica traveled southward, moving through unfamiliar landscapes, dense forests, and towering mountains. They stopped in various places, but none matched the divine sign foretold. During these years, they faced hardship and rejection. Other more powerful city-states looked down on them. The Mexica were often forced to work as mercenaries or settle in undesirable lands. But adversity did not break them, it refined them. Along the way, they absorbed knowledge from older Mesoamerican civilizations. They learned agricultural techniques, adopted the sacred calendar system, and developed religious and social structures that would serve them in the future. As we drift with them through these early centuries, we picture a people walking in reverent formation, carrying bundles of sacred relics, their faces painted with natural pigments, their hair adorned with feathers. Children help carry firewood, women grind maize, and priests recite ancient chants to honor the gods. Their journey was not merely physical, it was spiritual. They believed they were fulfilling a divine destiny. Each step brought them closer to the will of Huitzilopochtli. Eventually, around the year 1325 CE, they arrived in the Valley of Mexico, a high-altitude basin surrounded by mountains and filled with interconnected lakes. Here, they saw the long-awaited vision, the eagle, the cactus, the serpent rising from a small island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. The site was marshy and seemingly uninhabitable, but to the Mexica, it was sacred ground. Here, they would build their city, Tenochtitlan, the foundation of their empire. Using clever engineering, they began to fill in the lakebed with chinampas, floating agricultural plots made from mud and reeds. These islands allowed them to grow maize, beans, squash, and chili peppers. Over time, causeways were constructed to link the island city to the mainland, and a system of canals transformed the landscape into a shimmering, watery metropolis. Even in these early years, the Mexica displayed a resilience and ingenuity that would characterize their rise. They formed alliances with neighboring peoples, gradually gaining strength and influence. Though they were still tributaries to more powerful city-states, their confidence grew. Huitzilopochtli, they believed, had chosen them for greatness. In the temples they built, the fires of the sun god were kept burning. Priests marked time through a dual calendar system, one sacred, the Tonalpohualli, consisting of 260 ritual days, the other, the Xuchpohualli, tracking the solar year. These calendars guided every aspect of life, from harvests to festivals, from warfare to birth ceremonies. As we lie back and breathe slowly, we can imagine the sacred ceremonies performed under the stars, the incense of copal rising into the night sky, the sound of conch shells calling worshippers to prayer. This was not a world of separation between the divine and the everyday. Here, gods walked among men, and every stone, tree, and lake was alive with spiritual meaning. Children were raised with reverence for tradition. Boys were trained in the arts of war or scholarship, while girls were taught household rituals and song. All were expected to serve the gods and their community with discipline and devotion. Over the next few decades, the Mexica would continue to grow in power and ambition. They became skilled diplomats, warriors, and organizers. Their rulers, known as Tlatoqua, literally those who speak, were chosen not only for their lineage, but for their wisdom, valor, and piety. One of the earliest known leaders, Acamapichtli, became the first Tlatoani or supreme ruler of Tenochtitlan in the late 14th century. Under his leadership, the foundations of a royal dynasty were laid. He organized the city's government, oversaw temple construction, and began the expansion of the Mexica military presence in the valley. As we drift through the twilight of the 14th century, we see Tenochtitlan becoming more than just a city. It is becoming a symbol of divine destiny. The Mexica believe they are the chosen people, tasked with maintaining cosmic balance through worship, sacrifice, and conquest. But their rise would require strategy. In the next century, a crucial alliance would be formed, one that would change the fate of central Mexico forever. For now, we rest in the early dawn of an empire still in its infancy. The sky above Lake Texcoco is streaked with color. Canoes glide silently across the water. Priests bless the sun as it rises, offering prayers in Nahuatl, the language of the gods. The city is awakening, and so begins the story of the Aztecs' ascent to imperial power. Let your thoughts settle like mist upon the lake. We shall now follow their rise. As the 15th century dawns over the shimmering waters of Lake Texcoco, the city of Tenochtitlan begins to rise not only in stature, but in grandeur, complexity, and spiritual meaning. The Mexica, once humble migrants, are now the architects of a sacred city that will soon become the beating heart of a vast empire. By now, Tenochtitlan has grown from its modest origins on a marshy island into a sophisticated urban center. Wide causeways connect it to the mainland in 3 directions, each designed with defensive gates and drawbridges. Canals crisscross the city like watery streets, navigated by flat-bottomed canoes. Aqueducts bring fresh water from nearby springs, and bridges lift and lower with the tides of war and peace. At the city's center rises the Templo Mayor, the Great Temple, a twin pyramidal structure that honors the gods Huitzilopochtli, Lord of Sun and War, and Tlaloc, the rain god who nurtures the earth. Together, these deities reflect the duality of Aztec existence, destruction and fertility, sacrifice and abundance, war and renewal. Life in Tenochtitlan flows with sacred rhythm. The day begins with prayer, with offerings of flowers, copal incense, and maize. The sounds of the marketplace rise into the air, vendors calling out their wares in Nahuatl, the rustle of textiles, the clink of obsidian tools, the hum of barter. The Tlatelolco market, the largest in the region, is a marvel of order and abundance. Thousands gather daily to trade everything from cocoa beans and jade to dried fish, painted codices, and live turkeys. This market is more than commerce, it is a mirror of empire, where the bounty of hundreds of tribute-paying regions is laid out for all to see. The Kalpulli system, the basic social and political unit, structures life at the neighborhood level. Each Kalpulli has its own schools, temples, and communal lands. Education is mandatory for all children. Boys attend schools known as Telpochkali, where they learn warfare, history, and moral behavior. The elite attend the Kalmakak, training to become priests, judges, or high officials. Girls are taught domestic arts, song, and the rituals of womanhood. Though society is hierarchical and roles are gendered, women wield quiet influence in the home and in craft guilds, particularly as weavers and healers. The Mexica worldview is deeply cyclical. Time is not linear, but repeats in great cosmic ages called suns. According to their mythology, we live in the fifth sun, a fragile era sustained by human sacrifice. The gods, they believe, once sacrificed themselves to create the world. Now, it is mankind's sacred duty to repay that debt through ritual offerings. This cosmology imbues every act with spiritual weight. To live is to serve the gods. To die in battle or childbirth is to be reborn in the heavens. Blood is not just life, it is nourishment for the divine. As the city flourishes, so too does its leadership. In 1428, a defining event transforms the Mexica's fortunes, the formation of the Triple Alliance. Together with the neighboring city-states of Texcoco and Tlacopan, the Mexica create a powerful military and economic pact. This alliance, led by Itzcoatl, the fourth Tlatoani of Tenochtitlan, overthrows the powerful Tepanec overlords of Azcapotzalco, who had long dominated the valley. This victory marks the true beginning of the Aztec Empire. Under Itzcoatl and his successors Moctezuma I and Ahuitzotl, the Mexica launch ambitious military campaigns, expanding their influence across central Mexico. Each conquest brings new tribute: cacao from the south, turquoise from the north, tropical birds, jaguar skins, and obsidian blades. But conquest is not merely material, it is also ideological. The empire spreads not just armies, but temples, calendars, language, and gods. Local deities are often absorbed into the vast Aztec pantheon, their rituals woven into the central cult of Huitzilopochtli. The flowery wars, ritualized battles fought not for territory but for captives, become a feature of Mexica diplomacy. These prisoners are offered in sacrifice during great religious festivals, acts believed to ensure cosmic balance. Temples throb with sacred music, drums carved from cedar, flutes made of bone, and conch shells echoing across the plazas. Dancers adorned in quetzal feathers move in patterns that mirror the heavens. Priests, cloaked in black, interpret omens from the flight of birds and the shapes of clouds. As the empire grows, so does its bureaucracy. Tribute collectors, tax officials, and military governors are dispatched across the realm. Aztec scribes, using pictographic codices, record everything from genealogy and law to trade and ceremony. Still, not all regions are loyal. Some submit under duress, others resist or rebel. The Mexica maintain control through a blend of fear, religion, and economic integration. Cities that rebel are crushed, their temples razed, their leaders executed. But cities that cooperate prosper and gain favor. By the late 15th century, Tenochtitlan is one of the largest cities in the world, home to perhaps 200,000 people. Larger than any European city at the time, it is a marvel of urban planning, engineering, and spiritual vision. Visitors arriving by canoe see gleaming temples, markets teeming with life, canals lined with flowers, and palaces adorned with carvings. The city floats like a dream above the water. From a distance, it appears enchanted. Up close, it is meticulously organized. Streets are swept daily. Laws are strictly enforced. Education is valued. And though life can be harsh, especially for conquered peoples, there is a deep sense of order, meaning, and identity. This is not merely a civilization, it is a cosmos in miniature, a world carefully calibrated to reflect the heavens. And yet, beneath this splendor lies an unyielding truth. The empire is built on the belief that the gods demand blood. This faith drives everything from agriculture to warfare. It is both the heart and the shadow of Aztec greatness. As we lie still and breathe deeply, we imagine standing atop the Templo Mayor. Below us, the city pulses with life. Smoke from cooking fires curls into the morning air. Bells tinkle at the ankles of dancers. The distant cry of a priest calling to the sun drifts across the lake. All of this, the rhythm of empire, the rituals of belief, the delicate balance of power, will soon face an unexpected storm. For far across the eastern horizon, strange sails have begun to appear. But for now, rest in this moment. The city glows under the midday sun. Its people move with purpose. Its temples reach toward the divine. The empire is at its height. Let us remain here a while longer before we continue. The year is 1502. In the great city of Tenochtitlan, a new ruler ascends the throne, Moctezuma Xocoyotzin, more commonly known as Moctezuma II. He is a man of deep piety, disciplined intellect, and solemn dignity. His name means he who frowns like a lord, and indeed, he carries the weight of the gods upon his shoulders. Unlike his predecessors, Moctezuma II is less a warrior and more a philosopher king. He expands the empire, yes, but he also refines its ideology, its ceremonies, its sense of sacred mission. Under his rule, the court becomes more formal, the rituals more elaborate, and the imperial bureaucracy more centralized. Moctezuma surrounds himself with astrologers, diviners, and sages. He studies the ancient codices. He consults omens, dreams, and stars. The world, he believes, is growing restless. Portents trouble the heavens. There are strange fireballs in the sky. Earthquakes rattle the land. Rivers overflow. Temples crack. And most unsettling of all across the eastern sea, rumors spread of floating mountain ships with white sails, unlike anything ever seen. And then, in 1519, the strangers arrive. Led by Hernán Cortés, a Spanish conquistador from the Kingdom of Castile, a small force lands on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. They come in search of wealth, glory, and a passage to the riches of Asia, but they will find instead the heart of the Aztec world. Cortés quickly allies with the Totonacs, a coastal people resentful of Aztec tribute demands. Soon after, he encounters the Tlaxcalans, fierce warriors who long resisted Mexica domination. Though initially hostile, the Tlaxcalans eventually become the Spaniards' most vital allies. But Cortés's greatest advantage is neither gunpowder nor steel, it is language. In a remarkable stroke of fortune, he acquires two translators, Jerónimo de Aguilar, a Spanish castaway who speaks Maya, and Malintzin, also known as La Malinche, a native woman fluent in both Nahuatl and Maya. Through her, Cortés can now speak directly to the Mexico world. She becomes not only his voice, but a cultural bridge between civilizations. As Cortés and his allies march inland, they pass through towns and cities built with stone, adorned with murals, and filled with bustling markets. The Spaniards are both awed and greedy. The scale of civilization exceeds their expectations. The riches are real, and so is the power of the Mexica Empire. Word of the strangers reaches Moctezuma. He is paralyzed by uncertainty. Are these men gods? Are they sent by Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god said to one day return from the east? The old prophecies swirl in his mind. The omens align too perfectly. In his palace, Moctezuma performs rituals, seeks visions, and consults his priests. Some advise war, others counsel patience. The emperor chooses diplomacy. He sends gifts gold, turquoise, feathered cloaks, and obsidian mirrors. But these offerings only whet the invaders' appetite. Cortés and his men arrive in Cholula, a sacred city famed for its temples. There, under shadowy circumstances, they orchestrate a massacre. Hundreds are killed in a brutal show of force. The message is clear. These are not emissaries. They are conquerors. Still, Moctezuma opens the gates of Tenochtitlan. In November 1519, Cortés and his army enter the imperial capital. They are stunned by what they see: causeways stretching across the lake, canoes gliding through canals, palaces of white stone, marketplaces larger than any in Europe. Tenochtitlan, at its zenith, is a city of wonder. Moctezuma receives the Spaniards with grace and formality. He offers them lodging in one of his palaces. There is feasting, conversation, diplomacy. But beneath the calm, tensions simmer. Soon, Cortés takes Moctezuma captive. Whether through threat, manipulation, or perceived necessity, the emperor is confined within his own palace. The Mexica people are disturbed, but obey, still unsure of the stranger's divine status. From within his confinement, Moctezuma tries to maintain order, but authority begins to erode. The Spaniards loot treasures. They demand tribute. Suspicion deepens. Then, Cortés departs temporarily to confront a rival Spanish force on the coast. In his absence, chaos erupts. His lieutenant, Pedro de Alvarado, fearing rebellion, attacks during the festival of Toxcatl, slaughtering Aztec nobles and priests in the middle of a sacred ceremony. Blood stains the temple steps. The city rises in fury. When Cortés returns, Tenochtitlan is on the brink of revolt. The Spanish are trapped, surrounded in the heart of a hostile city. In desperation, they bring Moctezuma to the rooftop and ask him to calm his people. He speaks, but the crowd throws stones. Some accounts say he is struck and killed. Others claim the Spaniards murder him. Whatever the truth, Moctezuma II dies in June of 1520. His death marks the end of diplomacy. The city turns violent. On the night of June 30th, the Spaniards attempt a secret escape. Laden with stolen gold, they try to cross the western causeway under cover of darkness. But they are discovered. Thousands of warriors attack from canoes and along the dikes. The lake is filled with screams and arrows. Many Spaniards drown under the weight of their armor and plunder. Horses flail and fall. Cannons are lost in the depths. This night becomes known as La Noche Triste, the night of sorrows. Cortés survives, but his forces are devastated. They flee toward Tlaxcala, regroup, and prepare for a return. In Tenochtitlan, mourning bells echo through the city. The emperor is dead. The invaders are wounded, but not destroyed. The gods have been insulted. The world trembles. As we drift in thought, we see the once shining causeways, now bloodied and broken. We hear the weeping of priests, the mourning of mothers, the rage of warriors sharpening their obsidian blades. The fate of the empire hangs in the balance. But the storm is not yet over. A darker force has arrived, one unseen, one merciless. It rides not on horseback, but on breath and touch. Smallpox. Soon, a plague will sweep the land, weakening resistance and altering the course of history. Let us now close our eyes, rest, and prepare for what comes next. The year is now 1521. Tenochtitlan stands wounded, its emperor dead, its temples defiled, its people anxious. Yet it still rises proudly from the lake, its walls intact, its warriors undaunted. The Mexica have chosen a new ruler, Cuauhtémoc, the descending sun, a young noble of great bravery and fierce resolve. He is the last Tlatoani of a free Tenochtitlan. But while the Mexica prepare for resistance, a silent killer stalks the empire, smallpox. Introduced by the Spaniards, unintentionally perhaps, but no less devastating, it spreads rapidly through a population with no immunity. The disease disfigures, weakens, and kills without regard for rank or age. Priests, warriors, artisans, and rulers succumb. Fields are left unplanted, rituals unattended. The social fabric begins to fray. Historians estimate that half to two-thirds of the population may have died in this first epidemic wave. Even as the city mourns, Cortés returns. He has regrouped in Tlaxcala, rebuilt his forces, and forged an army of tens of thousands, most of them indigenous allies from regions long subjugated by the Mexica. They come not just for gold, but for vengeance. The Spanish bring cannon, crossbows, horses, and war dogs, but more importantly, they bring strategy. Knowing they cannot take Tenochtitlan by storm, Cortés lays siege to the city. The causeways are cut. The aqueducts that bring fresh water are destroyed. The chinampas, the floating gardens are burned. Starvation and thirst begin to set in. From the mainland, Spanish brigantine-small warships built on the shores of Lake Texcoco sail across the water, cutting off supply routes. Day by day, the noose tightens. But the defenders do not yield easily. Cuauhtémoc rallies his people. From rooftop to rooftop, across canals and through alleyways, the Mexica fight with courage and ingenuity. They rebuild barricades overnight, ambush invaders from hidden causeways, and send flaming canoes against Spanish ships. Each day brings brutal hand-to-hand combat. Obsidian blades clash with steel swords, atlatls, spear throwers, arc through the air, and sling stones rattle against Spanish helmets. The temples become redoubts. The sacred plazas turn to battlegrounds. Inside the city, hunger grows. Water becomes scarce. Disease festers. And yet, even in these dire moments, the Mexica continue their rituals. They chant prayers, burn incense, and offer what sacrifices they can, hoping to appease the gods, to turn the tide, to restore balance. But the siege drags on for nearly 3 months. By July, much of Tenochtitlan lies in ruins. The great Templo Mayor is shattered. Canals are choked with debris. Thousands lie dead. Survivors drink from stagnant water. Children search for roots and rats to eat. And still, Cuauhtémoc refuses to surrender. His defiance becomes legend. Stories tell of his quiet strength, his compassion for the wounded, and his unbroken gaze in the face of despair. He fights not only for survival but for honor, for memory, for the soul of a people. At last, on August 13th, 1521, Spanish forces capture him as he attempts to flee the city by canoe. Brought before Cortés, Cuauhtémoc is said to have spoken with dignity. "I have done what was required of me to defend my city and my people. Now, take this dagger and kill me." Cortés, though struck by the young ruler's courage, spares his life for now. With Cuauhtémoc's capture, Tenochtitlan falls. The city that once gleamed on the waters of Lake Texcoco, that housed pyramids and palaces, markets and music, is now a smoldering ruin. The canals run black with ash. The temples are torn down. Survivors are enslaved or dispersed. The Aztec Empire, magnificent, devout, disciplined, has come to an end. In its place, the Spanish begin to build a new city, Mexico City, on the very bones of Tenochtitlan. Stones from the destroyed temples are used to construct cathedrals. Churches rise where pyramids once stood. The language of Nahuatl remains, but Spanish becomes the tongue of power. The rituals are forbidden, the codices are burned, the old gods are silenced, but not forgotten. Though the empire falls, its spirit endures. In quiet villages, elders still whisper the names of the old gods. The Nahua people carry memories in their language, their customs, their maize fields, and their lullabies. And even centuries later, when historians and travelers unearth the ruins beneath modern Mexico City, they find the foundations of a world that once pulsed with sacred meaning. Let us pause here and reflect. The fall of Tenochtitlan is not merely the end of a city, it is the collision of two worlds, one driven by faith and tradition, the other by conquest and empire. One that worshipped the sun, the moon, and the rhythm of time. The other that brought with it steel, scripture, and ambition. Both believed they carried the favor of their gods. In the stillness of this moment, imagine the silent lake once more. The moon casts a silver light upon the waters. The ghost of a temple rises from the mist. Somewhere, the voice of a Nahuatl poet lingers, singing of eagles and serpents, of blood and stars. Though the city fell, the story continues. And so, we drift onward into the legacy of the Aztecs and the world they helped shape. As we move gently beyond the rise and fall of empires, let us now slow our pace and turn inward to the quiet rhythms of daily life in the Aztec world. For behind the grandeur of pyramids and the clash of armies lay a deeply rooted culture of families, farmers, artisans, and spiritual practice. Their lives may seem distant now, but their concerns, love, nourishment, education, community remain timeless. Let us walk together through an Aztec calpulli, a neighborhood cluster within Tenochtitlan. Here, adobe homes line narrow canals, each with a small garden or rooftop space. Families rise at dawn. The first task of the day is often to grind maize on a stone metate, preparing fresh dough for tortillas. A mother pats the masa between her palms, placing it carefully on a clay griddle called a comal. The scent of toasted maize fills the home. Nearby, children stir from their woven mats or patats, their hair still tousled with sleep. In Aztec society, family is the central unit. Each person has a role, from the eldest grandparent to the youngest child. Fathers guide and discipline. Mothers teach songs, rituals, and practical skills. Elders are revered, seen as vessels of memory and wisdom. Children are raised with both tenderness and formality. Respect for others, especially for ancestors and gods, is instilled early. Even a misbehaving child may be gently reminded, the gods are watching. Education is a duty, not a privilege. Boys and girls alike attend school, though their curriculums differ. At the Telpachkali, commoner boys are taught discipline, religion, and military training. They carry heavy loads, practice silence, and recite sacred verses. At the Kalmakak, sons of nobles learn astronomy, law, and leadership. Girls attend the Quikkakali, the house of song, where they learn music, weaving, domestic duties, and the intricate art of ceremonial dance. But all children, regardless of class, are taught that life is sacred, that hard work honors the gods, and that death is not an end, but a transformation. Let us drift now to the marketplace, the heart of daily life. The Tlatelolco market bustles with activity. Thousands gather here, traders, farmers, craftspeople, healers, and curious children tugging at their mother's sleeves. Here, cacao beans are exchanged for chili peppers. Cotton garments hang beside fish traps. There are baskets of avocados, amaranth, tomatoes, vanilla pods, and brightly plumed birds in cages. A dentist offers obsidian tooth inlays. A healer sells medicinal herbs copal for cleansing, tlalchichi for fevers. The atmosphere is lively but orderly. Judges oversee transactions, ensuring fairness. Shouting is discouraged. Cleanliness is maintained. This is not merely commerce, it is an extension of social and moral order. From the market, we meander through the streets of Tenochtitlan. Artisans sit at their doorways, carving obsidian blades, painting codices on deerskin, or crafting jewelry from jade and turquoise. Young boys carry water. Women sweep courtyards, sing lullabies, and tend rooftop gardens where herbs and flowers bloom in clay pots. The city's smells are distinct, the smoky aroma of chili sauces, the sweetness of cacao drinks, the incense of copal rising from household altars. Music drifts through the air drums, flutes, and the soft rattle of shells. In each home, a small shrine honors the household gods. Offerings of food, flowers, and song are made with simple reverence. The divine is not distant. It lives in the hearth, in the meal, in the birth of a child, in the planting of maize. Speaking of food, the Aztec diet is diverse and plant-based. Maize is sacred, the staple of life. Alongside it, people eat beans, squash, tomatoes, avocados, and chilies. These three sisters, maize, beans, and squash, grow together in harmony, each nourishing the soil for the others. Chinampas, the floating gardens, are a marvel of engineering and sustainability. Built from layers of mud, reeds, and roots, they produce high yields year-round. Farmers travel by canoe to tend them, their reflections mirrored in the calm waters. Meat is eaten sparingly, mainly turkey, duck, or fish. Insects and amphibians are delicacies in some regions. Cacao, used in sacred ceremonies, is brewed into a bitter, spiced chocolate drink reserved for the elite or for ritual. Meals are eaten communally, often in silence, with gratitude to the gods. Food is never wasted. Even crumbs are treated with respect. As the day winds down, families gather for evening rituals. Elders tell stories of gods, of ancient migrations, of battles and love. Children listen wide-eyed as the stars emerge. The Milky Way, to the Aztecs, is the trail of the gods. The moon is a goddess, the stars, her children. In this society, death is not feared. It is part of the cycle. The soul travels through different realms depending on one's life and manner of death. Warriors who die in battle return with the rising sun. Women who die in childbirth become spirits of the dusk. The dead are honored with incense, offerings, and remembrance. And so, the night deepens. The city slows. Temples glow with the last flickers of torchlight. Priests whisper chants. The moon rises above the lake, reflected in 1,000 quiet ripples. This was the world of the Aztecs, not merely temples and conquest, but a world of families and food, of music and memory, of reverence woven into every breath. Though empires fall, this inner world of song, of maize, of stars endures. So now, let your mind rest gently in the arms of the ancient lake. The echoes of laughter, the scent of tortillas, the rhythm of a lullaby, these are the heartbeats of a people who once believed the gods walked beside them. As we prepare to journey into our final chapter, may this glimpse of everyday life linger softly in your dreams. The waters of Lake Texcoco grow still. The sun has set on the Aztec Empire, and yet its echoes continue, whispered in language, remembered in ritual, and carved into the soul of a nation. As we drift gently into our final chapter, we leave behind the clamor of conquest and enter a softer realm, the realm of memory, of legacy, and of the living Nahua world. The fall of Tenochtitlan in 1521 did not mean the disappearance of its people. Far from it. Though the great temples were pulled down and the Spanish raised their own city atop the sacred earth, the spirit of the Aztec world endured in secret, in silence, and in resilience. Nahua families, descendants of the Aztecs, continued to speak their language Nahuatl, a tongue of poetry and metaphor. Even today, millions still speak it, in towns across Mexico. The word Mexico itself comes from Mexica, the name the Aztecs used for themselves. Though the empire's political structure was dismantled, its cosmology remained vivid. Villagers honored the old gods under new guises. Ceremonies once performed in temples found refuge in homes and rural chapels. Festivals shifted, but did not vanish. The earth was still sacred, the maize still blessed, the ancestors still close. Codices, the painted books of the Aztecs were preserved by scribes and monks who marveled at their complexity. While many were destroyed, others survived, becoming windows into a lost world. They tell us of calendars, battles, gods, and genealogies. They whisper of forgotten emperors and remembered dreams. Aztec knowledge of astronomy, agriculture, and medicine filtered into colonial science. Their calendars influenced European scholars. Their techniques of irrigation and plant medicine were adopted and adapted. Let us reflect now on the people, not the emperors or warriors, but the weavers, the midwives, the healers, the poets who kept the memory alive. They passed on lullabies sung in Nahuatl, taught children to honor the land, and continued to grind maize on stone, just as their ancestors had done for generations. In rural regions today, especially in Puebla, Guerrero, Oaxaca, and the Valley of Mexico, Nahua communities still celebrate rituals rooted in the old ways. Offerings of flowers, candles, food, and incense are made to the mountains, to the rains, to the sun and moon. The Day of the Dead, now famous worldwide, is a deep continuation of Aztec ideas. The marigolds, the skulls, the altars of food and memory, all of these reflect the old belief that death is not a departure, but a return. The dead are not gone. They walk among us, if only for a night. And in cities like Mexico City, beneath the bustle and stone, Tenochtitlan lives on. Archaeologists continue to unearth temples, shrines, and streets. The great Templo Mayor, once buried, now stands partially restored, its layers like pages in a sacred book. Visitors walk its steps. Offerings are found in its depths, seashells from distant coasts, obsidian knives, tiny frogs carved in jade. Scholars, artists, and storytellers continue to resurrect the Aztec world not to glorify war or empire, but to understand a people whose view of life was holistic, cyclical, and deeply sacred. And still, we ask, what remains of the Aztecs? The answer is everything. The rhythms of Nahua poetry pulse in Mexican literature. The complexity of Aztec philosophy lives in classrooms and codices. The spirit of the Chinampa survives in sustainable agriculture. The reverence for maize continues in every warm tortilla. The gods may wear new names, but they are still honored in music, in food, in memory. Even the calendar stones, once abandoned, now inspire new generations to look skyward. The ancient year-counting cycles may be quiet, but they are not forgotten. As we close our journey, let us remember that history does not end with a battle or a treaty. It continues flowing like the lake that once surrounded Tenochtitlan, feeding new life into the present. The Aztec world was not just a chapter in a book. It was, and still is, a world view, a way of seeing the universe as sacred, interconnected, and alive. And so, dear listener, as you drift now into sleep, may you carry with you the breath of the old songs, the echo of the drum, the scent of copal rising into a starlit sky. Let your dreams unfold like painted codices, telling stories of suns and serpents, lakes and feathers, families and fire. Let the quiet conquest of understanding be your guide. Good night.